Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and it's that time of year again. We are about to be entering a new season of anime, the winter 2015-2016 season. And with this video, I decided to go ahead and jump into a couple of short lists that I put together of stuff that I'm going to be looking at. And one of the lists is actually the more likely to be potentially covering an episodic reviews list. The other one is ones I'm just going to be checking out of curiosity, and whether I'm left surprised by them or wanting to talk about them, maybe I'll pick those up for coverage. One thing I can definitely say is out of both of these lists, I've got like 10, and then there's one to carry over that I'm covering. There's no way in hell, and holy hell, that I can cover them all, and I'm not even willing to cover them all, really, just because of time constraints and how annoying that would be. And all of these are going to be subject to how I'm left after watching the first episodes, whether I'm left excited and wanting to talk about them, wanting to cover them, such like that. I mean, it's pretty much open to whatever my, take on them is after watching them and seeing what excites me, what keeps me wanting to be talking about it and discussing it and engaged. And hopefully whatever I do choose will be something that piques your interest. So the one carryover that's going to be, from the previous season is Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. It's continuing, and unless somehow it falters and I lose interest, I'm going to still want to be covering it because it's a very engaging series, and I want to see where it's going. So that is going to be the one carryover. From these lists, though, I'm going to be referencing the definitive one where I think it's much more likely that I'll be picking a show up for coverage. And these are the 5 that I have for that. So the first one is Boku Dake ga Inai Machi, or The Town Where Only I Am Missing. Seems like a very dramatic mystery kind of flair series, and it sparked my curiosity. I'm really curious to see what's going on with it. The description talks about, like, the main character has this ability to trip through time and try to stop deaths or something along those lines. And it just seems really interesting as far as a plot suggestion. I'm going to be curious to see how they actually put it into form and function in the process of, the episode. So I'll be checking out the first episode of that. Second on the list of likely to be covering is Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, which I just really like the look of it, the look and the style. It seems to be a period piece, which I believe is about a guy who is, like, freshly out of prison, and he becomes sort of an apprentice to an artist or a cartoonist, something along those lines. But I really love the look and the flair of it, so I'm going to be definitely delving into the first episode, considering it for coverage. Following on from there, we have Dimension W, which just looks all kinds of freaking awesome. I believe it's set in the same time frame as, like, Cowboy Bebop, even though it's not going to be in any way related to that series, but in the future, like 2075, something like that. And it just looks sci-fi, action-y awesomeness. Like, as soon as I saw the very first PV going months back, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I gotta check this sucker out. So, hopefully, all of that, gorgeous animation and everything, and the little bits of characterization you see sort of hinted at are going to be full-fledged in episode 1 and leave me wanting to talk about it. Following on from which, we have Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash. A really cool sort of throwback RPG of, effect vibe to this one. People who know me know that I really love series that embody a certain kind of familiarity to, like, the classic Final Fantasy games and such that I really loved playing back in the day. And this one, out of all the ones, there are a few in this upcoming season, and even a second season for, like, the Gate series, which I had thought was going to be in that vein, but was not enough for my taste, so I didn't bother watching season 1 of Gate. But there are going to be a few series that are kind of loosely based on that similar kind of RPG framework. This is the one that stands out the most to me through the characterization and the animation, the look and the style of it. That really has me chomping at the bit to check it out. So I will definitely be doing that, and we'll see what happens. And rounding out the list of the most likeliest for coverage, which, if you've been following me, my channel, my coverage of other series past, you probably would have guessed would be on this list, but it's season 2 of Snow White with the Red Hair. Just a great, heartwarming series, and with a main lead who is a very strong female lead. So I'm definitely going to be watching that and see how it affects me, see if I still want to talk about it when it begins anew. Now that's the short list for ones that I'm going to be considering covering from right off the bat. Again, those are Boku Dake ga Inai Machi, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, Dimension W, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash, and Snow White with the Red Hair Season 2. Again, carrying over Mobile Suit Gundam, Iron-Blooded Orphans. Now, the short list for ones that I'm going to be checking out, time permitting, which is very scarce for me. But it's still a list of ones that I want to check out the first episodes of and see, and I might end up covering any one of these, even the ones from the, likely to be covered list. I may decide not to cover them, but still watch them, and maybe do a full review of the series once it's done. You never know. It's all based on however I end up feeling wanting to, deal with it. But the short list of ones I want to check out and not immediately considering for coverage, but I may change my mind, is Norn 9, Norn+Nonet, I guess. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's based on an Otome game or something like that. It just kind of looks interesting. Following on from there is Active Raid Kido Kyushujitsu Dai Hakai, or whatever, which is an interesting name enough, but then you get into the translated name, Active Raid Special Public Security 5th Division 3rd Mobile Assault 8th Unit. Whoa. I'm not saying that every week if I did cover it, but it kind of reminds me of sort of a mixture of Ghost in the Shell meets Psycho-Pass, maybe not necessarily as dramatic, remains to be seen. It seems like there's going to be a little bit of a comedic flair to it. I don't know, could be wrong, but I am going to be checking out episode 1, time permitting. Following on from there, speaking of RPG framework series, Phantasy Star Online 2, the animation, I'm curious, but in all honesty, I don't immediately gravitate toward the look, the form, and the function of it, like I do with the Grimgar Fantasy and Ash one. But I am curious. I've always been curious about Phantasy Star Online to begin with, the game, by itself, but this definitely looks interesting, so I'm going to be checking it out in any case. And finally, one that probably would surprise most of you who are familiar with what I tend to cover, then again, maybe not surprising to some others, is Dagashi Kashi. A sort of slice of life story, comedic in flair. This girl runs a sweet shop, or her family does, and it just looks cute. It looks funny, and I like being able to mix things up. I'm not somebody who gets interested in anime based on whatever they say the genre is, or whatever they say the style is. I don't gravitate toward, oh, it's a mystery anime, so I want to watch it. It's an action anime, it's a shonen, I'll watch it. I don't judge it by that. I literally just look at the PV and see how it makes me feel. See if I get excited about it, see if the animation is appealing to me, and boom. That's my short lists for ones I'm immediately considering for coverage. Again, the ones I'm considering from right off the bat, Boku Dake ga Inai Machi, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, Dimension W, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash, Snow White with the Red Hair Season 2, carrying over Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, and then ones I'm checking out without immediately considering for coverage, Norn 9, Active Raid, and all that all that text for that, the rest of that, just probably call it Active Raid, Phantasy Star Online 2, the animation, and Dagashi Kashi. And as I said in preface to the listing, there's no way in hell, there's a snowball's chance in hell that I'm going to be able to cover all of them or be willing to cover all of them. I think my current count was covering like 7 or 8 different series every week, 2 a day on 2 days out of the week, and it just gets monotonous after a while. I love anime, but frankly, my sanity, my wits, I don't love it that much to risk losing those things. But let me know in the comments below if any of these strike your fancy, if you'll be, signed on to follow along if I end up talking about them in episodic coverage, having that discussion, which is my favorite part of even bothering to make videos to begin with. It's not, sort of trying to get attention, it's wanting to talk about great anime series, how they leave me, whether I'm excited about them, curious about them, wanting to speculate about them, and share that with fellow anime fans like you guys, who are always the greatest of support and keeping me doing this. So, yeah, that'll be pretty much it for me on this particular list for the winter season of anime 2015-2016. That's pretty much all of it in the bag. I'm always open to recommendations as well. Like Dance with Devils was a series that I fell in love with. It was just all kinds of awesome, and it was not one that I had any awareness of going into the previous season, were it not for someone suggesting it to me, and I just taking the off chance on checking out the PV and getting really attracted to that sort of concept. I would have never covered it. So definitely open to suggestions as well. And yeah, if anything on this list does strike your fancy, let me know why and if you're going to be watching. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well. That'll be pretty much it for me on this, and I'll catch you later. Peace.